What's up guys, Taylor here. Today we're going to go over some climbing techniques for ninjutsu. Traditionally ninja were primarily intelligence gatherers, and often the way they would gather intelligence was through disguise and impersonation. Not as dramatic and theatrical as we see them today and portrayed in movies and such, but at times they would also need to use stealth to infiltrate certain areas, and that's what they're known for today primarily. Now, sometimes to do this they would have to climb over obstacles or onto buildings to gain access, or maybe just to find a vantage point. And there are a lot of old ways that they would do this, and you can find a lot of really cool old stuff at the Ninja Museum in Japan. Grappling hooks, ropes with knots tied in them in intervals for barefoot climbing or maybe for tabi, ropes with loops tied in them for climbing, rope ladders, single rung ladders, and everything in between. And I've tried a lot of these traditional ways over the years as I've experimented with climbing, and they work, but they all have a disadvantage of some type. For example, the rope ladder is obviously rather bulky. It's not very portable because of the boards tied in intervals. The rope with knots is really unsafe because somehow, no matter how big you make those knots, your feet will slide through one of them inevitably, and that's very dangerous when you're climbing it for obvious reasons. As far as the rope with loops tied in it, it's easy to get tangled up, which can be also a danger, and it's a very messy thing to carry around. So what I'm going to show you today is where I am currently as far as the best climbing methods I've found. And by best I mean the fastest, most efficient, safest, and most portable way that I've found to descend up, or to ascend up, descend down, and traverse from building to building. And my method makes use of a modern climbing harness and a series of knots, and sometimes, if needed, a modern grappling hook, which we'll get into in a minute. So let's get into it. So anytime you're climbing, there's obviously a high level of danger, and what I want to emphasize here is safety. Every piece of climbing equipment you use has to be something that you trust your life with, right? And that goes for your rope, that goes for the knots you use in your rope, that goes for your climbing harness, that goes for your grappling hook or whatever you're using, and that goes for whatever you're anchoring your climbing rope onto. I can't stress that enough. I think the most common area of this that people forget about is knots, right? They start climbing and then they're like, do I really trust this knot? So we're going to learn some knots that you can trust your life with. Alright, we're going to take a look at the prusik knot because it's so central to the way I climb. Now, if you know what a lark's head knot is, a prusik is just a lark's head with a few more loops in it. So a lark's head is a really easy knot. You bring your fingers through like that, and then this is your lark's head. So if you have an anchor right here, you tighten it, and it looks like that. So a prusik just takes that and brings the knot through itself a few more times. So we're going to do it on this rope right here. So we start with the lark's head, like so. And then we're going to take this loop that we have centered and pull it out a little bit and bring it around through itself again. Now that is already a prusik. And in some climbing situations, once you dress it, this one's being a little gross. Once you dress it, then it's already safe to climb with certain ropes, but you have to test the rope to see. This rope is really slick, and so you have to go through it several times, but that's the basic prusik right there, already done. So if you find that your rope is sliding, you're going to loosen it again, put it through again, and then try that. 3 is usually enough, but this rope is so crappy that you have to do 4. So once I do 4, just going to pull it through one more time. Voila. Now here is the magic of the prusik knot. When I first discovered this knot, well, I was taught this knot by my friend Spencer Two Dogs, but once he showed it to me, I was mind blown because it's so cool. So, prusik right here. If you pull from this knot, from this end of the prusik, it won't go anywhere. This will hold my body weight, right? And that's how we use it to climb. But if you pull from the knot itself, it slides. And that's the beauty of it. So the way I climb is, I connect the carabiner to it. I'm not sure you can see this because the camera's zoomed in. But I connect the prusik. I connect it to the prusik, and I can hang here all day long. Woo! Right. But I have another prusik lower, so I step up into it with my foot, which relieves the body weight off of this prusik, and then I slide this prusik up, and then I put my weight back in it, slide the bottom prusik up, and repeat. Now that's my climbing method, and it's great. All right, so we just learned the prusik, but there's another knot on the other end of that system that's equally as important, because as we went over earlier, you have to trust every piece of equipment and knowledge that you're using with your life when you're climbing, so it's very important. So these are my little prusik lines, as I call them. They're just short looped pieces of rope that I use to tie prusiks into the main line. But as you know, this is the knot right here. So as I put the prusik through, there's another knot, and they're holding this whole unit together, and it's equally as important. So there are lots of knots you can do with this. I'm using the sheet bend, which works well enough. It's safe, and it's not going to come loose. Now, I've found that over the period of several dozen climbs, they very slowly loosen up. So I'm sure there's a better knot out there. I haven't found it yet, but I'm going to. But in the meantime, this is one safe option. All right, so what you're looking at here is all I need for most climbing situations and also many rappelling situations. All right, all of it is here on my harness here. Now this harness is a really cheap harness. I think it's like the cheapest climbing harness on Amazon. It's like 30 bucks or something. And the only thing that's bad about it is it doesn't have any padding, right? The more expensive ones have padding around the waist and around the legs. But here's what I found is if you snug the legs up a whole lot, you really don't need the padding. It's quite comfortable even over long periods of time. So, you know, part of being resourceful is getting good equipment for low cost. And so here's an example of that. All right, well, here's what we got. We've got about 30 feet of rope right here. We've got a Rescue 8 figure 8 climbing mechanism, which we'll use to rappel. I've got 3 short ropes here for using a prusik system, and I've got a climbing carabiner and another climbing carabiner. These are both locking carabiners, which is really important. This one has a screw gate which locks it, and this one I actually like better because it has a spring mechanism, which is much faster to lock and unlock. This is my current climbing method. I put my put my foot through the bottom prusik, step up, and as I step up, I slide the top prusik up, like so, and now I've climbed a bit. Then I just bring the bottom prusik up to my hands, slide it up another time, put my foot through it again, climb up, slide the top prusik up, and repeat. So it's not the fastest method, but once you get a rhythm going, it's not all that slow either. And depending on how flexible you are at the hips, you can potentially gain a lot of distance with every step. And also, your hands are free for if you have a weapon, if you're in a military situation and you need to take a shot, then your hands are quite capable of doing so. All right, now we're going to have some fun, and we're going to use the grappling hook. Now, a grappling hook is useful in a lot of urban situations because in order to use the method I used on the building out there, I had to have an anchor point that I could go around, right? So something like a branch or a tree or a pipe, a really sturdy pipe, like say, like one of those handles on the edge of a railing, you know, that is designed to keep people from falling off of a high place. That would work. But if you just have like a rooftop, a lot of urban buildings have like concrete outer structures. That's when a grappling hook comes in really handy. Now, if you just go on like Amazon and type in grappling hook, you're going to find a bunch of grappling hooks for anywhere from $20 to $50. And those are actually used in fishing a lot. They're not used for climbing, and that's important because they're not designed to hold enough weight to be safe for climbing. Now, when you climb, you need equipment that will withstand 2 or 3 times the weight of a human being, because if you slip a little bit, your body weight is not the only thing that the rope has to hold up. It has to hold up upwards of 600 and 700 pounds and more sometimes. So this is a TRG grabber grappling hook, and the website claims that the military and FBI and all kinds of like hardcore people use it. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they claim. But it's rated at over I think 1,400 pounds per claw. So all three of them together, you're looking at nearly 5,000 pounds that this thing could hold. Granted, you're usually not going to get all three prongs to connect, but one prong is more than enough to hold human weight. So this is what we're climbing with. It's got these nice teeth on it, which make it grab a lot better, and it's a very safe, very effective grappling hook that also folds up, making it fairly portable. So we're going to climb this tree behind me here, and we're going to go up it using the grappling hook, and then we're going to come down using a rappelling system with the same setup. So let's check it out. All right, so here's the setup I have. I have the figure 8 knot connected to a locking carabiner, connected to the TRG grappling hook. And underhand throws are good sometimes. Overhand throws are also good. Just play with what works for you. Alright, so it feels like it caught, but if possible, before we start climbing, we're going to go check it out and see what it's hooked on to see if it's secure looking. Right there, it's got two of the prongs connected to the tree, and it looks pretty secure. So next we're going to test our weight on it. And it appears quite safe. So we'll put on the bottom prusik. Okay, rappelling. Rappelling is using rope and harness to descend a building or other structure. In this case, a tree. You really need gloves or hands of steel to rappel. I'm going to use gloves. It's good to toughen your hands up for a variety of reasons, but rope burn is a pain, so we're going to avoid that. And gloves are good for any kind of climbing. The hard knuckles on the back are good for if you're right up against something and all your weight is pushing your hands into that. It sucks. So get gloves, and if you need to rappel, I use a figure 8 climbing mechanism, really simple one-piece thing that makes rappelling possible for me. It may be possible without it, but not for me. All right, here's my method. So I take the same rope I climbed with, and I'm going to loop it around an anchor point. In this case, this giant branch right here will do just perfectly. All right, so the looping is key to being able to retrieve the rope once I'm done. If I can just tie a knot in this rope and keep it up here, but then I have no way of getting it down once I've rappelled down without coming back up, which defeats the whole purpose of rappelling. So this loop is going to enable me to pull the rope once I'm done climbing, once I'm done rappelling, and get it down. So that's important. It's very important. All right, gotta get her down. Just double check. You can usually estimate, but just double check to make sure your rope is long enough to get pretty close to the bottom. It doesn't have to touch the bottom. It just has to get within maybe 2 or 3 feet or more, depending on how comfortable you are jumping. All right, here's how you rappel using a figure 8. So I'm gonna create a loop in the rope. I'm gonna take the big part of the figure 8 and put it through, and then pull that down behind the small piece. So the finished product looks like that. And that's going to create some bites, which are these points of friction in the rope, which make it a little easier for me to control the rope as I go down. You're going to make sure that the part of the rope that comes down past your hip is on your dominant side, or whatever side you want to use to brace yourself. So the dominant hand, or whatever hand is on the side of the rope that comes down to your hip, is going to anchor itself on the hip. This is really important, because this hand is the primary way you speed up and slow down as you descend. Top hand can help a little bit, but the bottom hand is a lot stronger. So you're just going to lean back, feel the tension, make sure you're not going to slide too much, and kind of play with how much tightness you want in that back hand, and keep that back hand anchored to your hip, and begin your descent. found that to be really quick about getting your rope back. Just release one end, pull her down. You can even start to wrap it as you pull it to be a little more efficient.